Car ma vie, car mes joies, aujourd'hui.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Mitchell.
That's the very opening of the film. The very first
It is,
shot.
yes, yes.
So you better explain what's going on.
Well, it's the film starts with I play a character called Harry, who's a magician, and Robert Webb, who I usually work with, plays Carl, and we're very happy as a magician's double act, and we got to know each other as children, and it's our real love, magic and conjuring, and we're doing quite well, you know. We've just got a job doing a cruise ship and this kind of thing, and we're sort of happy. Except there's one small fly in the ointment, which is I discover that Carl is having an affair with my wife, who's also our glamorous assistant, and that very same night, I accidentally cut her head off doing a guillotine trick, and for some reason, we then split up as a magic and, you know, the film sort of tells the story of our trying to sort of rebuild our lives and sort of come back together, and obviously, we can't put my wife back together, but, you know, come together in other ways.
Yes, of course. I always think that magicians, I mean, who take themselves very seriously, I think because of that they are wonderful objects for comedy, aren't they?
Well, yes, it's one of these worlds where the stakes within that world are incredibly high, and there's a lot of bitching and a lot of people saying, he stole my way of making a handkerchief come out of my sleeve, or whatever it is. But actually, seeing it in a broader context, none of this really matters. Yes. And I think that contrast is always quite a good area for a comedy.
My idea of the best of the lot was Tommy Cooper. Because what Tommy did was actually send up all that we talk about the humour. He did it, didn't he?
Yes, yeah, and I think, you know, with him, the brilliance was that you can see the anxiety and the pain, and, you know, there's a whole story of a magician failing in his every glance, you know.
Who are your comedy heroes when you... I mean, first of all, your first choice wasn't comedy, was it? You wanted to be a politician. You wanted to be Prime Minister, indeed.
Yeah, I regret saying this, actually. I wanted to... When I was a teenager, yes. When you're a teenager, I don't think you really know what you're allowed to say you want to be. And, you know, it was only when I was sort of 7 or 8, I wanted to be a wizard. So, you know, when I was 16, 17, wanting to be sort of in charge of the whole country, it seemed like a sort of logical progression. It's a sort of journey towards a more realistic goal. But basically, I didn't want to be Prime Minister. I just liked the sound of my own voice.
But you went to Cambridge,
yes.
and you went to the union there, and you decided that you didn't want to be a politician. What put you off?
Well, I think it's fair to say that at Cambridge there is a sort of big debating society called the Cambridge Union, and it's a big, mouldering 19th century building full, in my experience, of horrible people who are just incredibly sort of power-hungry and grasping. And, you know, they were actually sort of young, but at the same time, all they cared about was being on this committee instead of that committee, and insulting so-and-so in the right way in the right debate. And they were sort of pretending that this Victorian building was Britain. And, you know, one day, those people will probably get to run Britain, and... oh, God. That's when I decided it was more fun to do jokes.
And you did the footlights, and then away you went, met Robert, and away you went. Mm. When you were a child, I mean, with watching television, were you a Doctor Who fan?
Oh, yes, hugely, yeah. I spent, I think, probably 2 years pretending to be Doctor Who.
Right. That's roughly what I'm doing in the moment.
For some reason, it got less coverage than I did. But no, I had a system with... I told myself that our airing cupboard doors looked very much like the doors of the TARDIS. And so I'd sort of go... And unfortunately, our airing cupboard didn't have the advantage of being any bigger on the inside. It wasn't quite the contrary, because there was a big sort of water tank in there. So I'd have to sort of step, as it were, into the TARDIS, and then, well, now I'm turning round, and now this is in the TARDIS. And I can't quite imagine how stupid I looked to my parents. But But, you know, it was something to do.
And do you have the Tom Baker scarf and all that sort of stuff?
No, I sort of designed my own doctor from various items of clothing I discovered.
Oh.
And so I had a sort of little black Mac. And I think I wore plimp soles because that seemed to me to be like the cricket shoes that Peter Davison, the then doctor, was wearing. Yes. And I experimented for a while with a bit of some sort of bit of grass in the top pocket of the Mac, because Peter Davison had a bit of celery, which would tell whether or not he was being poisoned. Why he wouldn't know he was being poisoned, I'm not sure. But, yeah, so I used to walk around in that a lot.
So, basically, you're frustrated?
I suppose so,
Your career's come to a terrible end.
My parents must have looked at me then and thought, is our son happy? As I sort of looked through biros to decide which was most like a sonic screwdriver.
It's fun. I love all those boyhood fantasies. They're so important, aren't they? They really are. Get the imagination working. Let's talk about your relationship with Robert Webb, because you met him at Cambridge, and then you worked together. Peep Show, Mitchell and Webb show. You got two of those. What you said once that it's like a marriage, working with him.
Well, yes, I suppose it's. I mean, in that you have to spend a huge amount of time together, and it's like a marriage with someone with whom you are not in love, I suppose, because much as you know, Robert is one of my dearest and closest friends, I do not romantically love him.
Are you making a statement now to the media?
Yes, indeed I am. And the fact that he seems so constantly to be in the same room as me can get a bit wearing, and you start thinking, why is he? Oh, yes, it's because of the double act, that's why. He's always in the room, and then you obviously have to remember that he probably gets a bit irritated with me sometimes as well.
Now, does it get fractious?
No, we're very polite, actually. I think we're good, repressed British people. If we ever had it all out, we'd say things neither of us could ever forget. So we don't do that.
It's interesting because the characters you create in the movie and on television, they're emotionally paralyzed, aren't they? I mean, there's a wonderful sequence in Magicians where the girl comes on to you very strongly and you like her, but you can't tell her. And you're mumbling and then you say, well, I might love you a little bit, I don't know. Yeah. And in fact, you want her, you're rampant for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Maybe you should sing to her.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Well, it's actually, there's a bit in an episode of Peep Show where my character starts trying to sing to impress the woman he's in love with, and that it really doesn't help.
What do you sing, by the way?
I think it's a Nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. Yeah. For some reason, my version was never made into a single.
Was it? Now, the other quote I want to give you is this about your love life.
Oh God!
Well, when you...
I don't think it's worthy of a quote.
No, this is another quote. Well, there you are, you see, because we're talking about this partnership that you have with Robert, which you've explained. You say that. You said, and speaking of it, you said in this quote I got, I've had an extremely uneventful and grim love life. What's a grim love life?
Well, I don't know. Perhaps I use words like grim without thinking about it. No, it's not been grim, like, you know, a sort of long walk on a moor in the rain. But, yeah, uneventful. I stick with uneventful.
What does uneventful mean?
You know, the small number of people involved, I wouldn't like to in any way insult on television. So, you know, I blame myself for any grimness and, to a certain extent, for the lack of events.
What kind of events are we talking about? You get a grooming. All right, now, also, too, of course, I mean, you did a majority of your work in television, but then last year you ventured out onto the stage, the big stage.
Yeah, well, we sort of started on the stage in a way, because the way you get into comedy, because no one will lend you a television camera, so you have to sort of put it on the stage, and we did the Edinburgh Fringe for years and years, but we hadn't done anything on stage since 2001, and then, yeah, we did sort of reasonably big tour, and it was a massive change because suddenly we were playing sort of 1,000-seater venues that were full of people, as opposed to a 90-seater venue that very much wasn't, which was our experience at the end of the Fringe. Remember, I think one year in '97 we played to 2 people, one of whom was a reviewer. And, you know, at that point you sort of think, you know...
What am I doing?
Yeah, should we give up the show and just try and bribe this guy?
OK, and Magicians, it comes out in, what, a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah, 18th of May.
All right,
yeah.
fine. And finally, can I ask all of you, I mean, we've all been fascinated by the business of Doctor Who, that if you had that ability, so I often ask myself this question, to go back in time to an event or a place, what would it be? What would be that time and place, that event? David, have you thought about this?
I would probably go back and meet myself, aged about 14. Just a couple of pointers. A couple of opportunities coming up that you're going to miss. And just a little bit of friendly advice, I think, probably.
Amanda, what about you?
I would probably go back to last Saturday when Everton were winning 2-0 against Manchester United and then suddenly lost the whole thing 4-2.
With your sonic screwdriver, you would
Yes,
change that, would
I
you?
would change that.
Right. And Michael?
Woodstock. Because I've met people that have been, but they don't remember what happened, so...
Interesting.
I'd go and see for myself.
And David?
I think I might go back to when they were building Stonehenge and ask them why they were bothering.
David Mitchell, thank you very much indeed. David Mitchell.